E ngā reo, e ngā mana, e ngā kāoranga maha. Tēnei he mihi ki a kou atu ki a koutou. Hoi anō, ko tēnei he reo kāranga ki a koutou, ko tae mai ki raro te whakaruru hau o tā mātou whare, te piringa o te mātou ranga o te kūnenga ki Hūrehu roa. Hoi anō he mihi māhana ki a koutou. Kei te huri au ki te reo prawa ki a koutou. Morena everyone, it is wonderful to have you in such a beautiful building. Matua, lovely to see you, Pa. This morning I came to do the karanga. Hoi anō, hei, kei konei koutou. So, ko tēnei taku reo karanga ki a koutou, kei runga te āhuatanga o te wahine. Never forget the woman has the first say. I just want us all to know that. So we know.
I left your mother at home.
That's right. But he got the daughter. So this was my part to do my karanga so that you got to hear my voice. And on my voice, I'm going to introduce my dad to do our mihi whakatau. I'd just like to acknowledge our mayor, Grant Smith, a matua, tēnō mihi ki a koe, kei runga te āhuatanga o tā mātou taone for all the good work that you do in our city. Thank you. Matua Paora, he tēnō mihi ki a koe. Mēnā ringa tautoko o tēnei whare o Massey, he mihi ki a koutou katoa. And for everyone else, near and far, te tau ihu, mai anō tēnei taha o mātou mō tēnei taha, he tēnō mihi ki a koutou. So without further ado, I'm going to welcome my father, Wiremu Kingi Te Awiawi, from Rangitāne, to open us up so you can start your amazing summit.
Kia ora. Am I in the right place? Kia ora! Whoa, I'm in the right place. After all that, let's bow our head in prayer. Inui tātou. E tō mātou mātou i te rangi, kia tapu tō ingoa, kia tā mātou rangatiratanga, kia me te atua e pai ai ki rungo o te whenua. Ki rete anō ki tō te rangi, ho mai kia mātou i nai nei. E tarama mātou mō tēnei rā, mura mātou hara. Me mātou hoki muri nei e utunga anana kia mātou. Au hoki mātou e kāuia, ki whakawaenga, engari, hakoranga e mātou i te kino, no hoki, te rangatiratanga me te kaha me te kōrea, ake ake, amine. Tēnā koe he te deputy mayor. Te mea. Te rangatira, tēnā koe i o hoa. E kui mai, kurama. A iwi ngā hau e whā. The League of Nations. Tēnā koutou. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Ngā mihi nui, kia koutou. Nau mai, haere mai. Roto i te whenua rangatāne o Manawatu. Anei nā mātou tu rōpu, kura au e ka nei raro i te koro ai o tarangi Māori e. Ki te kaua nei, ki runga te kaupapa o te rā. He waha kōrero, hei whakamārama, he whiti kōrero. A whakaro. He pāana ki te kaupapa o te rā. Horizon's good guys. Kei te ora te wai. Kei te ora te whenua. Kei te ora te tangata. He roto i te pai pira tapu. Ko te whakapono te tumanako me te aroha. He me nui. Ko tarangi Māori e. Te whakatauki e te pēti te awi. Kua kaupapa au te aroha mo koutou e whakahoti. Just a very brief translation, because I'm a bit worried about the ones up the back there. They're looking a bit bewildered by what I said. I know my brother there knows. I open up, in my viewpoint, with the best prayer in the world. And it's the Lord's Prayer. You know why I love it? It says, Our Father. That's all inclusive. Not them and those and who's and us. It includes everyone. And then I went on to say, taken out of 1 Corinthians 13 out of the Pai Pita Tapu, commonly known as the Bible. 3 things which remain, faith, hope and love. But the greatest of these is love. And when the Māori king died, and his daughter sat there, the thing that they put on her head was a paipira tapu, a Bible. And it was so good at his tangi to see all the different churches getting up. Because in my viewpoint, Christians get a bad rap. They accuse them of being colonisers, and that's a part truth. Don't get me wrong, there were good Christians and bad Christians. The bad ones told us to look to heaven. While we're looking to heaven, they pinched our land. And we haven't got it all back. But there were good ones for Rangitāne, Ngāti Rauku and Ngāti Toa. And kouwhata was the gospel of all peace to us. So that's why for us, and you look at Tohu and Te Whiti, Parehaka, was the gospel of all peace. So, you know, I get a lot of our young people jumping up and saying, this and that and this and that. Look, I tell you what, we weren't holding hands and singing Kumbaya in the old days. But it was the gospel of all peace. But anyway, nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Ko wai tō ingo wai, ka wei ai koe o mātua ki te wai tūai, mā kue tapa tui tui o. Tupuna whakare wari te rangi, e hine noho mai, e hine roto I te whare tai whe toki I te whare, no tūai rangi ka pata. Nei hei tope tope I anga toko hia toko hiru nuku ia toko huri rangi I ara hako tuki ana kokoki. Ngā toko e hine toko nai te rangi runga nei. Re te mara o te ao wheo rangi tope topi te ngai tope tope ai ngā rangi te tangata ngā waira e mau e ki atu na te kahuri pou. Ngā pou tuti, ngā pou tahai, ngā pou kōrero, ngā tau taringa I tiki ki roto whare kura e hine e. Pai kare koro has to get into practice, I can barely keep up. If you see my hands are shaking, it's not that I'm nervous you're here, but I'm at the early stage of Parkinson's. But the good thing about that is I'm always ready to do a haka. So beware. Nō reira, tēnā koutou. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa.
Kāti oku rangatira, oku pūkenga, oku ngaio, oku mātanga, koanga ngā kaunōku kei te tūwhakaiti ahau, te tautoko I ngā kupu whakatawi a koutou, puta mai I tōku rahi, I a Rangitāne o Manawatu. Nō reira tautoko ane I ngā mihi a kura haupo waka, a Rangitāne iwi, a te papai o ea whenua, a te papai o ea tangata ki a koutou. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. A whio mai, talofa lava, au te whaatalofa atu I te autou a whio mai lenei aso, pore vinaka, mālo I lelei, kia orana tātou katoa toa, Daozhang hao, Niman hao. Good morning and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome everybody to our summit. You might have picked up a little bit that by whakapapa, I'm Rangitāne Hāmua, a blended version, inferior infidel version of Rangitāne from the other side of the mountain range. But my great pleasure to join with my whanaunga of Rangitāne o Manawatu and welcome you all here this morning. My name is Paora. I'm the Deputy Vice-Chancellor Māori here at Te Kuninga ki Purehuroa, Massey University. And it's also my great pleasure to welcome you with that hat on. I have one job, and it's to introduce to you people who have already been introduced to you. So you've been well welcomed. I'm the third welcome, but also to introduce to you, to those who weren't following, His Worship Grant Smith, our Mayor of Te Papaioea of Palmerston North, and also my colleague and friend Giselle Byrnes, the Provost here at Massey University. So we're going to hand over to them soon. But before we do that, I want to just come back to the words of our matua of Weremu Te Aweawe, and the words of his tipuna Pēti Te Aweawe. Kua kaupapa e au te aroha mā koutou e whakaoti. Those words, for me, they're your ancestors' words. And he's in the statue, isn't he, in the square in Palmerston North. For visitors, go to the square in Palmerston North, Gary. Grant, sorry. All the visitors, avail yourselves of the hospitality of our town. But for me, those words mean we've set the foundations. We've set the foundations of care. We've set the foundations of aroha. And now it's time for the rest of us to get on with it. And I really do feel that is pertinent to what we are discussing at the moment. There are foundations that have been set, yes, and 5 of these conferences have gone past, but foundations that were set much, much earlier, and now we need to get on with it. So I want to leave, to finish, I thought I was doing karakia, but you've already had karakia. But I wanted to also add a little bit to karakia and finish with those words of mana whenua, but also with the words from Te Taiao. In my house, I'm the chief groundsman. One day she'll let me be the chief gardener. And I love spring. It's my favourite time of the year, you know, for all the obvious reasons that things are starting to bloom and blossom everywhere. I'm really, really privileged. Where I live, you can start I don't know if the tui ever stop, but they seem louder at this time of the year. The bellbird, for the famous New Zealand bird for people that are visitors from overseas, who I should also actually extend and support. Weremu's welcome to you all. So you hear the tui, it seems to be getting louder. I'm also lucky, every now and then a kereru will whoosh past. But for me, the real harbinger of spring is pipi wharaurua. So I just want to end in te reo o te taiao. Kui, whiti whiti ora ki te taiao. Kui, whiti whiti ora kia tātou. Kia tūturu, ka whakamaua kia tīna, haumi e, hui e, tā iki e. His Worship Grant Smith, the Mayor of Palmerston North. Thank you.
Thank you, Paora. Thank you very much for the introduction. Kia ora tātou, nau mai, haere mai, ki te papiaoia o Manawatu. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. And look, a very warm welcome to Palmerston North City and the mighty Manawatu here, and for those that are internationally, a warm welcome to New Zealand, Aotearoa. Can I just acknowledge Rangitāne? Thank you, Noreen, my good friend Weremu. I always get a history lesson every time Weremu speaks, and it's always very, very interesting. Could I just acknowledge Massey University Provost Giselle Byrnes, to others here, the Chancellor Alistair, other senior leadership team people here. I think Cynthia's here, yourself, Paora. Thank you very much, and other keynote speakers. And I just want to acknowledge Professor Paora Ammunson from Wageningen. Where are you? Welcome back. Massey University and also the City of Palmerston North have a great relationship with Wageningen, and a great university there, a research university, and I've had the pleasure of visiting a number of times. So look, it's a real pleasure to have you here, and to also be discussing this really important topic of SDGs. And there's a number of our staff here too, and I think I've got a couple of councillors coming today as well, and I'll be sharing with you a little bit later our journey as a city and what we've been doing in this space. But could I also acknowledge Glenn and Regina and their team that have organised the conference. Thank you very much for, we were a partner in that along with Rangitāne, Environment Network Manawatu, and Food HQ. I thought it was really important that we gave some support to the university when they pitched for it. And yes, it's been around the other universities, but it's great that it's here at Massey. And thanks to everybody else that's contributed to the two-day event, including the sponsors, a number of those and it really does give a meaningful space to have a discussion around change in the sustainable development sector. And around the summit's key themes of climate justice, with a Te Ao Māori lens on things around sustainability, social equity and system change. And I said, I'll be talking a little bit further about that tonight in the refectory. I think the word sustainability at times can be overused in today's landscape, but it means different things to different people. And I think hopefully you'll get a bit of a snapshot of what we're trying to do as a local authority. And I think it's really important that councils are in this space because we can enact change as we work through that with our residents, our communities, and what it means for different parts of our community, whether it's fiscally, economically, commercially, environmentally, culturally, and let's not forget politically. I'll also have a copy of our biannual sustainability report. We've been publishing that since 2016, and you can sense and see, and you spoke about the birds and everything else, there's been a real shift, I believe, in the last decade of where we've been moving as a city. So I do hope you have a great couple of days here today. There's some really great sessions in the agenda. And if you get a chance to get out and beyond this beautiful campus here, for instance, we just over the river, we have our botanical gardens, the Victoria Esplanade, and we partner with Massey University there in the Wild Base, the Central Energy Trust Wild Base Recovery Centre. And also if you get a chance to have a look at Hihara Kotahi Bridge, that was a partnership with Rangitāne, the New Zealand Government, NZTA, and that really has opened up both not only this campus but also this Sciences campus for Food HQ and Linton Camp, our military camp, which is close by. And just an example of how well used that is, in the first year, over 1 million people took that trip across the bridge. That's 10 times the population of Palmerston North. So it's certainly getting well used. You get a chance to go into our beautiful square Te Marae Hine, and as Wiramu sort of spoke about Te Piti Te Awi Awi, he's a statue there in our beautiful town centre, and you know that was erected in 1906. So New Zealand was quite a different time in 1906, and to think that we haven't got Lord Palmerston there, and we've got Te Piti Te Awi Awi, I think is testament to what Palmerston North is. So all of that is really worth a good look. We've got a lovely contemporary sculpture and mural art display there, including Paul Dibble. There's a number of Paul Dibble public sculptures there. And look, if you're struggling to get around and know where things are, just have a chat to one of the locals. They'll know where things are. So look, thanks everybody for making the time to get to this summit. Looking forward, I'm going to be sitting in on most of today. Looking forward to hearing the discussions. I do hope that it really is enlightening for everybody, and have a great couple of days. Kia ora. Thank you.
I'm going to use the mic. Tēnā koutou. Tēnā koutou katoa. Nau mai. Haere mai. Mōrena koutou. Good morning, everyone. My name is Giselle Byrnes. I'm the Provost here at Te Kuninga ki Purihurua Massey University. It's a real privilege and pleasure to be here. In my role as Provost, I support research commercialisation and teaching and learning across the university. It's my great pleasure to welcome you all here to this very important and timely event, the 2025 Aotearoa New Zealand Sustainable Development Goals Summit, which is focusing this year on sustainable production and consumption. I'm really honoured to be asked to speak here this morning at your gathering, a space where ideas, innovation and collaboration will, I think, over the next couple of days, converge to shape a more sustainable future First, I want to acknowledge Palmerston North Mayor, Grant Smith. Thank you, Grant. You are hugely supportive of Te Kuninga ki Purihurua in this region and others, so thank you. I want to honour that. Rangitāne partners, Norwine, Wiremu, Warren, and also my dear friend and colleague, Paora. Thank you. We really appreciate the partnership that we have with Rangitāne here in Manawatu. I want to acknowledge the summit co-conveners, Professors Regina Shavens and Glenn Banks, who are sitting over there. Yes? Okay. And a big welcome to Bram from Wageningen. It's great to see you back here, Bram. Thank you. An opportunity for us to, I think, reciprocate the hospitality that you have shown to us when we've been in your part of the world. Thank you all for your leadership and your commitment to work together in the spirit of true partnership. We're also joined today, of course, by a remarkable group of speakers, of researchers, of practitioners, and most importantly, of community leaders. Welcome to each and every one of you. Your presence here today signals a shared commitment to addressing the most pressing challenges of our time. We know what they are: climate change, ecological degradation, and social inequity. Issues that are now being contested in various parts of the world through fake news, alternative evidence, and so on. But we are committed to exploring how we can solve these and other issues through the transformative potential of sustainability in all of its dimensions. And yes, it is an overused term, sustainability, but I believe over the next couple of days, you're really going to thrash out strategies and practical ways to give sustainability meaning, building on the work that we've already completed. Here at Te Kuninga ki Purihurua Massey University, our aspiration to work towards being te tiriti-led, and it is a journey, guides every single thing that we do. This means honouring the principles of partnership, protection, participation, and so on. It also means ensuring that tangata whenua perspectives are foundational to every single one of our sustainability efforts. And while it's true to say that the SDGs offer us a global framework, it's only through local wisdom, local understandings, and respectfully drawing on mātauranga Māori and community partnership actions that these goals will actually come to life. Massey's committed also to accountability in our sustainability journey. And by way of example, in the 2025 Times Higher Education Impact Rankings, Massey ranked 84th equal in the world globally, and we had top 100 placements in 8 of the SDGs, including 10th for zero hunger and strong results in climate action, gender equality, life on land, and sustainable cities. That's thanks to the hard work of everyone at Massey and in our communities. We're very proud of that. It's a metric, it holds us to account, and we want to keep going. We want to continue to drive the positive results that we've delivered to date, to demonstrate to our students, above all, to our staff, and to the communities we serve that for Massey, sustainability is real. This 2-day summit invites us all, I think, to explore further how we can create a culture of sustainability, not just through policy, not just through theories and publications or technologies, but by working with people, by encouraging practices that promote both human and ecological flourishing. I think we can build systems that are resilient, inclusive, and regenerative. You're going to hear about carbon sequestration, a vital strategy in the fight against climate change, how it intersects with land use, with agriculture and Indigenous stewardship. A really important conversation for Massey University, given that we own farms within our asset base and given our long and proud history in advancing agriculture. You're going to explore the concept of smart and sustainable cities, something that the Mayor touched on, where digital tools and evidence-based strategies are reshaping urban planning to be more adaptive, more equitable, and more environmentally sound. The psychology of sustainability also reminds us that lasting change begins with mindset. You know that. Understanding what motivates people to act sustainably is key to designing interventions that work. In a similar way, food sovereignty challenges us to really rethink our food system, centring local control, cultural relevance, and ecological health. You're going to delve into looking at circular economies, which offer a powerful alternative to the linear take, make, waste model that we've become so accustomed to. By designing for reuse, regeneration, and minimal waste, I think we can unlock new pathways for innovation and for economic resilience. Sustainable finance is another lever for change that we cannot overlook. How we invest, what we value, and how we measure success must evolve if we are going to fund the future that we want. You're also going to examine how tourism, often seen as a double-edged sword, can be aligned with the SDGs to support conservation, cultural exchange, and also community development. Another very controversial topic in our country at the moment, mining. You're going to discuss the transformation of the mining sector for sustainability is a bold but I think very necessary conversation, one that demands transparency, accountability, and a reimagining of extractive practices. And similarly, designing for sustainable development challenges us all to think holistically, creatively, and ethically. So from sustainable agriculture and nutrition to the health of our oceans, every session today and tomorrow will surely reflect the interconnectedness of our challenges and also the interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary nature of the solutions that we seek. Education is, of course, the golden thread that's woven through all of this. Education for sustainable development empowers learners of all ages to become change makers. And in the spirit of lifelong learning, education underpinned by robust evidence-based research, a defining characteristic of a university, equips us all with the knowledge, the skills and the values needed to really and truly build a better world. Massey is very proud to support this agenda, and I want to acknowledge today the existence of our Chancellor, the presence of our Chancellor, Alistair Davis, which I think in itself is also symbolic of Massey's deep commitment to sustainability. As we look ahead to the future of the SDGs beyond 2030, we must, I think, now ask ourselves as individuals and as institutions, what legacy are we leaving for our children and for the next generations? What new goals must we now imagine? 2030 is not far away. And how can we ensure that our efforts remain grounded in justice, in equity, in the everyday lived realities of our communities? So, as you commence the summit, I invite you and I challenge you to engage deeply with one another, challenge the assumptions that you may hold when you came into this space, and collaborate in bold and authentic ways. Let us learn from each other. Let us listen to diverse voices, and particularly the silent ones, and leave here not only inspired, but really and truly equipped to act. Ngā mihi nui kia koutou. Thank you for being here, and let's begin.
I was just giving Glenn his 10-second countdown. So to return again to the words of Te Pēti Te Aweawe, the foundations have been set. It's now up to you to do the work. The foundations have been set. You have been welcomed to place. You have been spiritually looked after. I will hand over now to Glenn and Regina, who are going to run you through the ceremonies for the day. But just to follow my colleague Giselle, the tagline for the conference, sustainable production and consumption. When you say that in English, I sort of respond and feel about that in certain ways. But if I try to render it in te reo, Te whakatipu i ngā rawa, te whakamahi ngā rawa, kia toi tu ai a rangi, kia toi tu ai a papa, I feel and think about it in a very different way. So just to follow Giselle's thing, how we make sense of things, how we, and the importance of education and knowledge in making sense of things and answering the questions that you will be asking for these next 2 days is extremely important. Tēnā koutou katoa, Glenn, Regina, kei au kōrero.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paora. Kia ora. On behalf of my fabulous colleague here, Regina Byrnes, and myself, I'd like to welcome you to the SDG Summit. Is this audio, am I happening twice? No, it's all good, it's all good. Welcome to the 2025 Aotearoa National SDG Summit. Thank you to those who have welcomed us in one way or the other. Rangitāne on Manawatu, to their land, to their whenua. Grant Smith, Mayor, welcome, the welcome to Palmerston North, and the Provost, Giselle, thank you for the welcome to the campus as well. My role here is really twofold. One is I'm the domestic help with some housekeeping, and secondly, it's my role to introduce the first of our keynote speakers, Professor Niki Harré. To the housekeeping first. The usual things, the usual procedures in terms of an emergency. So an earthquake, what do we do in the case of an earthquake?
Thank you.
Come on, everyone.
A+.
Thank you, thank you. You're all obviously watching the ads on TV very, very closely. In case of a fire, there's exits up the top. You would go down the stairs, otherwise out the front door here and just assemble on the concourse. I don't think we're going to have any other emergencies, are we? Hopefully not. Toilets. Toilet emergencies can be dealt with over the other side of the foyer. There's toilets there. There's also water at various points within the foyer. There's glasses. There's a filler thing for your own bottles. Make sure you stay well hydrated. Health and well-being is very important to us as coordinators of the summit as well. The program, the summit program, we've tried to reduce the amount of printing we do, so we use the app on your mobile devices as the primary means to access the program, to make sure you're in the right place and so on.
But there are a few copies of an A4 of the program in yellow at reception if you'd like one.
Also, the app is where you can ask questions and answers on each session. So my understanding, I'm perhaps you, as one who knows more about the technology than me.
Most of you might have been to a conference where you can upvote questions if you particularly like someone else's questions. So when questions are asked at the end of a session, if there is time for them, and there will be in some and maybe not in all of the sessions, then they will be asked, the facilitator will ask them from the questions on the app rather than just going to the room in general. Okay, so if you haven't downloaded it yet, it's not too late, and there's instructions on the back of your registration, your badge, as they call them.
I should also have thanked, we've got a couple of key sponsors. We've got an organisation called Sprout, and we've got the local herb farm who have donated materials to help us with the conference as well. If you have any questions, I don't think Brooke or James are in the room, but our wonderful event dynamics coordinators are available in the registration area, and you will also see, can I have the volunteers stand up, please? You will see these people wearing their Massey t-shirts. They will be able to help you with anything and everything. So thank you very much, volunteers. Another note is to make sure that you sign up. If you haven't already done so, you've already paid for field trips. You've paid for a field trip, so if you haven't signed up for one yet, you can sign up over at the registration desk. There's still a few seats left in each of them, I think.
Yeah, and particularly encourage you to consider the one that Warren Warbrick, who's down the front here, will be guiding to our beautiful new highway, Te Ahua Turanga, which has got some wonderful connections to the history of this area. There's some of Warren's and other artists' work on display as part of that have been incorporated in that design, and also sustainability very much so. And we're really lucky that PNCC, our City Council, helped to lobby New Zealand Transport Authority to get the cycleway and walkway included that weren't going to be included originally with that. So that's cool, and that's one of the ones on offer. Or if you want something more active, you can join me on an e-scooter going down to Urban Eels and Heara Kotahi in the Manawatu River. So up to you.
Or you can join me and go and do some good out there in the community, plant some trees, pull out some weeds. So if you sign up for that particular field trip, make sure you come with some clothes that you don't mind getting dirty,
Okay.
as well as some dirty boots stuff. What else have we got here? Reminder that this evening, you don't need to worry too much about making dinner plans, because we have a welcome reception over at the refectory where Grant Smith is going to introduce us to some of the sustainability initiatives that PNCC is doing, while you're able to also have some food and some lovely beer, wine and other refreshments. I've also got a note here about timing, those for the speakers in particular. We don't like to think we're real hard ass here at Massey, but we are going to keep you to your time limits from the start.
Yes, we are.
Yes, we are.
Okay, your volunteers will be using these signs, okay?
There are two other points and then one other thing from Regina. I'd like to just send out a note of thanks to Pedram Pernia.
Is that the back there?
Pedram, you, I understand, were responsible for this, the very first of these, the organisation and the putting together the idea of these SDG summits. So thank you very much. This is number 5, and hopefully there will be another couple before 2030. But we owe a lot to you and your work around this. So thank you. If you go out the doors, you will see there's a photo exhibition that's been put together by Alice Beban, and Alice is up the back as well. And it's based on her work around sustainability in Cambodia, working with communities. And there's some magnificent photos and stories attached to those. So I'd encourage you during the coffee breaks to go and have a look at those. I was then, technology question for Regina, hashtag. What do you want to say about hashtag?
You all look like you're social media savvy, so please use the hashtag SDG Summits NZ if you are posting on any social media about what's going on at the conference. Thank you very much. And we might write that on some boards. One of the volunteers might be able to do that in the break. Thanks.
I think that's all. So thank you, Regina, and I will now switch to my second non-domestic help role, which is to introduce our first keynote speaker. Professor Niki Harré is a professor and head of school in the School of Psychology at Auckland University. She's been heavily involved in the sustainability space as a teacher and as a researcher for many years now. Her research covers the psychology of sustainability, of values and of civic discourse, and she has led action research into creating and embedding the culture of sustainability into organisations. It's your kind of ethos in many ways. She's also the author of a couple of very high-profile books that have dealt with these questions of really trying to address how do we move forward in a world in which there is so much crisis being directed at us, in which we can feel sometimes the weight of the world on our shoulders and coming from all sorts of directions. So I love the title of your book. It speaks so directly to what we're here for, Niki, psychology for a better world. And I think that sums up beautifully what we would like to be doing both over the next few days, but what we take with us from here as well. So on that note, Niki, the microphone is yours.
Excellent. Great. Kia ora koutou. Wonderful to be here today in Palmerston North. Such an honour to speak before you, Mayor Grant Smith, and so many of the senior management of Massey University. I'm really honoured that you are here today. And of course, to all you fantastic people out there making it a better world. I've put together a few thoughts to share with you today on the psychology of working with people within organisations, as Glenn outlined. And Gabriel, you stole one of my very first lines. I don't know if you'd already seen my slides, but sustainability as long-term human and ecological flourishing. So what I'm going to be talking about today is creating a culture of sustainability and defining sustainability as long-term human and ecological flourishing. So a sustainability culture has a physical dimension. We can see it in the built and natural environments in which we're inhabiting. So things like a green building, cycle paths, bike racks that are full of bikes, national and regional parks in which native species are regenerating. These are signs of and facilitate a sustainability culture. But it is primarily social. Sustainability culture is a vision. It's a hope. It's a way of talking to each other, a way of organising ourselves, and it is a practice. It can exist in any size group. If a pair of people are together and committed, that's a sustainability culture. A family, an organisation, a community, a city, a nation, international networks. Now, in an important way, we are actually sustainable right now if we've entered the space and we have these commitments. If we're living with the vision, we, in a sense, are there. In another way, we will never be sustainable. Human communities will always live with a tension towards flourishing and with a resistance and a pulling back from that. We discover more and more about the natural world all the time. We make a huge number of mistakes. So we're not going to arrive at some kind of solution. We are right now what, in a sense, we need to be as we move forward. Sustainability, I sometimes have the image, I don't know if any of you have been to Cairo in Egypt, but it's right on the desert. And there's all these, mostly women, sometimes men, that sweep the sand from their doorsteps every morning to stop the desert encroaching. And that's sometimes a metaphor I keep in my mind when I think of sustainability. It's ongoing, it's a necessary work, it's a necessary part of human communities. Sustainability exists in uncertainty, it looks to the future, but it also attends to the present. So I'm going to read to you an extract from an essay by Tony Kushner called "Despair is a Lie We Tell Ourselves" that I think really captures what I'm trying to get at here. It's heavily edited by me with a few sort of additions, as you can see in the square brackets. A Chicago cab driver recently told me, "If there's a supernova 60 light years away from here, the world will be totally wiped out and we don't stand a chance." He gave me something to think about, namely the fact that life is a teleological game. It's not infinite, it has an ending, and so the future you put your faith in is not, in fact, limitless. Given the catastrophic failure to seriously address global warming, given the sagging of the world's economy and the refusal to see any solutions beyond making poor people suffer even more than they always do, well, it's sort of optimistic to believe a supernova that's going to get us. It's clear that what's much more likely to get us, if we are got, is our present condition of living in the world. Since I was a little kid, I've been told I have choices. I do not believe the wicked always win. I believe our despair is a lie we tell ourselves. In many other periods in history, people, ordinary citizens, routinely set aside hours, days, time in their lives for doing the work of sustainability, some of which is glam and revolutionary, and some of which is dull and not especially pure. So when the supernova comes to get us, we don't want to be disappointed in ourselves. We should hope to be able to say proudly to the supernova, that angel of death, "Hello, supernova, we have been expecting you." And we would like to say, supernova, in the moment before we were returned by your fire to clouds of incandescent atomic vapour, we have tried our best and worked hard to make a good and just and free and peaceful world, a world that is better for us having been here. At least we believe it is. I discovered climate change when it was mostly still called global warming in about 2005. I was and am a community psychologist, which means I'm working at the interface of groups and human psychology, how we think, feel, and behave. My foundation is in social psychology, which is about social interactions. Community psychology, however, is directed at change. It is about how we collectively make things better in whatever situation we find ourselves in. Until 2005, I was mostly working on traffic safety and positive youth development, but always in tandem with local community groups and local government. So for me, discovering climate change was actually an epiphany of two types. One is I actually paid attention to the planet in which I'd lived my whole life. I don't know where I thought I was living until then. And secondly, I unequivocally knew this was my problem. I had the strongest sense of, if not now, then when? If not us, then who? Having spent 20 years now in this space, I've come to realise more and more strongly the importance of people working together to create this elusive sustainability culture. Hard to pin down, but you kind of know it when you see it. It's both easy, because as human beings, we're sociable, we're creative, we're cooperative, and we readily identify with the natural systems and other living beings around us. It is incredibly difficult because sustainability is about challenging aspects of the status quo. For example, consumption, one of the themes of this conference, the more on which our economy depends. And it's also really difficult, and this is going to be the focus of most of my talk, because when any group tries to set itself up to challenge the status quo, there's tension in that. And that can damage the interpersonal relationships of the people concerned, in which they are pushing against. They're doing a difficult job, round peg and square hole kind of work, and they can feel vulnerable and betrayed. In 2009, my students and I did work with long-term political activists, 8 people. Anybody over 40 would recognise most of the names of these people, but I'm not going to say who they were. And one of the questions that we asked them is, what's the worst thing about your activist life? Now, when we'd asked about the best thing, many of them talked about working with other people and the joy that comes from that. But for the worst thing, the majority also mentioned relationships with other people. And I've just put one extract up there for you to think about. The worst things that have happened to me in my activist life have been about when you've ended up in a group that's more divided than it was to start with. And I bet if I got you to put up your hands, most of you could say that you've been there and done that. This is hard, difficult work, and often it's our butting up against each other, which is the most demoralising and draining part of this work. So I'm going to be focusing today on what to do to create a sustainability culture. And I've got 2 sort of threads to that. The first is to work on yourself. I've got 3 ideas within that. And the other is to work within these communities and each other on communications and structures that keep us all alive, creative, engaged, and have a sense of belonging. Who you are and how you present in the world matters for encouraging a sustainability culture. It isn't all about sort of high-level politics. It's about how we are in the world. That is, after all, the starting place for every human action. So I love this quote by Bob Marley. It's like a Zen koan. We're not here to judge what's good from bad, but to do the things that are right. Think about that for a moment. That's a real challenge. So my first suggestion is to cultivate humility. There's two kinds of humility. We need to accept that we neither know for sure what is true, epistemic humility. We do not have a complete knowledge of what is. And we do not know for sure what is right, moral humility. Now, humility is really tricky. How do you not judge but do the right thing? An awful lot of our conversation in environmental circles is about judging. It's about teasing out who and what is good and bad and how they need to change. We do need to figure out things in conversation, but there's a fine line between trying to understand what you are up against, which is important, and going over and over a narrative of blame in which the focus is trying to change other people. I know this for sure because I'm really good at sinking into the blame narrative when I'm with like-minded others. And when I do, it's a combination of exhilarating and kind of ick. I walk away with this sort of distaste that somehow I've done something off. Humility is really important because it maintains our integrity. Look inside yourself. Think about the areas on which you are not an expert, but loudly and directly and consistently proclaim what is true, what you know about. For most people in this room, certainly for me, 99% of what we know about the living planet and things like the physical effects of climate change is received knowledge. We accept it because we've heard it, but we do not at some fully deep level really understand it. Now, what I'm suggesting is that you find inside your place that little piece of uncertainty, that place in which part of you knows that while you're arguing furiously with somebody else, that they too believe themselves to be right, and that you have been wrong on many other occasions before. I think humility is really important for two reasons. One is to find the honesty in us that we know that really, we are uncertain about so many of the things we say, but also even from a practical point of view in terms of our relationships with others. It's all about relationship. That's what a sustainability culture is. So if we enter that conversation holding that doubt, we come from a place, I suggest, that is calm and that makes people feel safe, makes people feel welcomed, and leaves the opening that we need. Control your fear and anger. So when people are presented with threat of any kind, we often have two reactions. Anger, which is provoked especially by injustice. They did something wrong. They hurt me, us, or other people I care about. And anger encourages attack. Anger is strongly present in social movements and is actually quite motivating. It's a start, if you like. But ultimately, the action tendency that the emotion of anger provokes in us is to tell others to change what they do. Fear is provoked by threat to ourselves and or those we love. Fear encourages withdrawal. Now, an example I often use of fear with my students is sea level rise. So I happen to live in a house that is 7 metres above sea level. It's not on the coast, but 7 metres, sometimes that doesn't seem high enough. And sometimes when I hear scientists or people talking about sea level rise, and particularly when it's presented in a catastrophic way in which, our home's likely to be underwater within 10 years, what do I want to do? Do I want to fight for climate change? No, I want to sell the house and move to higher ground. So that fear response is encouraging me to look after myself and those that I love. It is not actually encouraging an openness to collective action. So fear and anger are built into us for good evolutionary reasons. They are important for survival. They are important for generating and understanding social dynamics, but they are not constructive. They're either destructive or, if you like, withdrawing from the situation. So control your fear and anger. I particularly suggest this in relation to fear for those of you who work with young people. The other day, I was visited by some students from Western Springs College, Ngāpunua Wairea, which I'm going to talk about a little bit in a moment. And they told me, they were now year 13, but they told me when they were at primary school, the teacher had sat them down on the mat, the whole class, and had told them about this thing called climate change and all the effects it was going to have. They said by the end of that session, both of them and almost everybody else was crying. And the image to me of this teacher portraying this in such a way that made primary school children cry, that's not how I want to go about doing this kind of work. And I could only imagine that potentially that person had recently discovered this, was full of their own fear, and essentially projecting that onto these young people. You don't have to lie, you don't have to cover the facts, but I suggest that you present these things in a way in which you have personally sort of understood and come to terms with what it might mean for you, and so you're able to do it in this calm and centered way that I'm advocating and also advocated in relation to humility. Okay, the third thing is to attempt to align your practices and spaces with the world that you hope to live in. Now, I've got 3 suggestions here. The first of these is to live simply. In 2021, I did a project. I'm not going to go into great detail about the particular project, but part of it involved me taking 3 vows for my life, how I was going to live that year. One of them was simplicity. I was going to live simply. One of them was hospitality, and the other one was pause. I'm not going to talk about hospitality and pause today, but simplicity had 2 elements to it. The first element was that I had a uniform. So I had this small array of black and grey clothes. This grey scarf was actually part of the package, and the black shoes I've got on now, and I would wear nothing else all year. I also was not going to buy anything non-essential. So the rules for that were that I could buy food and I could buy groceries, dishwashing liquid, painkillers or whatever, but nothing else beyond that, no sort of consumer goods. I got rid of all of the advertisements that were coming into my inbox, and I also was allowed, if anything broke, like my cell phone, I was allowed to replace it, but actually nothing broke during the year. Now, simplicity was such an easy vow, I soon forgot I had taken it. I can tell you, living with no choice over what you wear, or very minimal choice, and no capacity to buy anything, it's unbelievably liberating. It really, really is. And partway through the year, I had this experience of what I called a strange new feeling of happiness. And it was a kind of spaciousness, which I think came in many part because this whole piece of my life about consumption and noticing and thinking, oh, this would be nice or that would be nice, was gone. And it allowed other things to fill in that space. Now, part of simplicity is being tidy. So I'm a tidy person. I've been tidy for quite a long time, but it was an overnight thing. I was really messy until I was about 32, precisely 32, in fact. I can tell you the day that it happened, when I suddenly became a tidy person. And as I talk about with sustainability, the house was still a mess, but I had something in me had completely switched. And it's actually one of the things that I practice and enjoy more and more. These aren't my drawers, but they could be. I mean, my drawers really do look like that. And one of the things that's really interesting about tidiness and relates to the simplicity factor is if you start to have that as an aesthetic, you really don't want more and more stuff, because everything has its place, and you also look after material objects very conscientiously. I keep clothes for as long as I possibly can and care for them really carefully. And as I say, my drawers look like that. Sometimes with students, I'm doing a talk or whatever, and people say, oh, what's one little tip? And I say, one little tip is go under your bed and see how many pairs of shoes you've got moulding under there. Do something with all of those. And when I come to visit you in 2 years, I don't want to see all these neglected items lying around. Remember, it starts with us. It starts with us as much as possible lowering our consumption and impact on this planet. Now, this will look different for everybody, I get it, but again, it goes back to that centered space, that authenticity, that integrity when you're moving in a space and working with others. Now, the third aspect of this is be visible. Glenn mentioned my book, Psychology for a Better World. I think the thing that had most impact in this book is that I suggested to people that if you're a cyclist, you carry your helmet around on the back of your bag or you put it on your desk at work, because part of doing these practices is our own authenticity and integrity, but part of it is becoming a modelling, an example for others that others can copy. When people see a cycle helmet, they're modelling, they're copying brain thinks cycling, and it makes that behaviour more likely for them in the future. So lots of people come up to me and say, you know the thing that I'm doing now? I'm putting my cycle helmet on my desk. So you have to be kind of subtle about this, because if you hit people over the head with your fantastic behaviours, they may not be inspired by them. But I think one of the reasons this example resonated with people so well is because you can subtly put your helmet on your desk. You can subtly, you know, the Zoom setup that you have, you can subtly make sure that your psych helmet is just sitting in the background of that call. And today I get the opportunity to tell all of you in an invited situation about some of my other practices. So making visible what you do is not, it's an art form, and it takes time and it takes care in terms of the situation. But that's the second part of why attempting to align your practices is important, because other people will notice, and if it works with their lifestyle, will try and do that, just as you have learnt from others. I only started riding my bike to work, which I do in Auckland every day, because I learned of somebody living near me that did that, and I thought, oh, I could do that. We're all learning from each other all the time. So the second part, connect and support those who want to contribute. So as I've said, sustainability is about bringing people together. It's about sustaining relationships and sustaining those relationships and generating projects from what's inside the people that have gathered. The things that are most important to them is as important as having grand goals for things like reducing carbon emissions or similar. In fact, as a community psychologist, I'd say it's more important, but you know, we can have a discussion over morning tea, because humility, Niki. I'm not trying to say I'm certain on that, but this is just, you know, how I see the world. Okay, so the first thing I want to suggest is creating a bridging structure that brings people together from across whatever unit you're working with. So it might be an organisation, it might be a community, it might be a city, bringing together those people who have an interest in sustainability to be in communication with each other. Be super nice to them when they are together. You know, food, always good. Making sure the space is good. Catering to people's sort of, you know, biological, physical, social needs, all of those incredibly important. This is an article, if you are interested, it's an open access article which describes that process. So this is a project we did at Western Springs College, Ngā Puno Wairau, which is near Auckland Zoo. And this is a complex picture, and I'm only going to draw attention today to one part of it. But one thing we did at that project over 11 years is an action research project that my graduate students and I were involved in with people at the school. My children also went to the school, so you know there was lots of relationship already within the school. And we started actually with one environmental prefect, one teacher who was, you know, the facilitator of that one environmental student leader, myself and my graduate student, 4 people meeting to try and figure this thing out. By the end of 10 years, we had a sustainability panel with representatives from all of these different parts of the school that you can see. So we now had 3 student leadership teams working around sustainability, each with 3 student leaders and panels underneath them. The school, Ngā Puno Wairau, called the Rumaki, has its own student groups that were also involved in the project. Ground staff were critical to the project. I'm going to outline one example in just a second. Senior management also involved. Once a term, only once a term, we all came together as a sustainability panel with a nice afternoon tea, talked about the projects, made sure that we stayed in relationships and supported what each other were doing. But we generated projects from these different groups. So one of the things I want to also say is sometimes people talk about top-down versus bottom-up, and it might sound like I'm talking about bottom-up change, but I'm actually talking about change from anywhere. Like change can come from the top, change can come from the bottom, change can come from the middle. In fact, it's not until all those things are sort of starting to pop up and changes and building together that you get kind of that real change that starts to really stick. So generate projects, take action, remember that change can come from any part of the social system. The best projects are those generated and maintained by people closest to the activity or issue. That could be policy making, that could be teachers, in this case, teaching classes, that could be students working with their peers, etc. You know the context that you're in. I'm going to run you very quickly through one example from Western Springs and Ngā Puna Wairea, which was one of the early projects we did once the school had 3 environment leaders. So these 3 environment leaders were interested in waste management, often a place where people start. And one of the first things, one of my graduate students was a filmmaker and had tons of friends doing films. So they made a film to encourage school students to be involved in the quest for sustainability and in particular clean up the waste system. So Jared Dunn was their liaison teacher. He was a head of PE and a rugby player. So he dressed up as Gumby the fairy and they did their sort of promotion. The school found it absolutely hilarious. That film has been showed many, many times. Then we invited students who were interested to come along to a mapping activity where we found something like, I'm trying to remember the exact number, I think it was 89 of those big drums around the school into which all rubbish was chucked at that point and all dumped into landfill. So these students were invited to map where those were and to suggest how we could start to have waste separation across the school and where it should be located. So these students advocated for 12 waste stations, which would have compost, recycling and landfill. And then the next step, after we'd worked with the ground staff, the principal, took a while in which they agreed that we would actually do this, was to have a waste audit, see the amount of waste the school was generating in different categories, helped by Auckland Council. And then the student leaders designed these waste stations. I'll show you a picture of one in a minute. And we had a painting weekend where students could come along and paint the sides of these waste stations. They were just in panels at that time. Here's a finished waste station. And this has as did all of them, have your compost, your landfill and your recycling. And some further signage was added to make it clear what that was doing. And here's a picture of many of the beautiful waste stations. 12 of them replaced these 89 or whatever drums it was across the school. Now, the ground staff were heavily involved in this because it takes a lot of work to manage waste, and the school senior leadership was committed to paying for the compost, most of the compost, to leave the school. Recycling, again, was going into the Auckland Council system, although some of this was before that was fully up and running. The school was recently rebuilt. We still have the 3 bins, but they are now, sadly, hygienic plastic bins. You can just see them in the corner, rather than our gorgeous waste stations, which a couple of them still remain as a sort of artefact from those days. So my final point, create a tale of joy. 5 minutes, great, perfect. Create a tale of joy. A tale of joy invites people to participate in activities that benefit us all. It involves accessing our deepest values and being shown that these are shared. The message is bring your gifts and we will take care of you. Bring your gifts and we will take care of you. Now, I've done quite a lot of work sort of accessing people's deepest values and making sure and encouraging people to see what they have in common. And I've actually heard that spoken about this morning, that commonality. We are, after all, people together trying to figure out the impossibility of life on this planet. This is never something that we're experts in. So some of the work I've done has involved asking people what they consider of infinite value, precious, sacred, special, of value for its own sake, that which makes the world truly alive. And usually I would actually, ask you to generate your own, but because I think I've now got 3.5 minutes left, I will go straight to the answer. I have asked thousands of people this question, thousands. 1,080 were part of a research project here in Aotearoa. We produced a word cloud that represented the kinds of things they said, and here it is. Oh, here it is. I sometimes think love is a big bang from which all else is generated. So love, family, happiness, nature, friendship, laughter, civil society, connection, healthy environments, children, humour, spirituality and transcendence, artistic expression, landscapes, honesty, animals and plants, hope, peace, trust, and so on. If you come to my workshop, we can do more work talking about this, and I'm actually not going to tell you that story because I haven't got enough time left. Okay. But why do and when do people cooperate? And I think the COVID pandemic, whatever your views, I'm not trying to raise a controversial issue here, whatever your views on all of that, it was incredible the extent to which people agreed, at least for a while, to all be on the same page. And even though nobody knew what was the right thing to do, nobody knew what would happen, there was that collective sense of working together. And this enormous, one of the things that's absolutely critical for people to be in a space together and to work together is that tale of joy. Welcome, come, bring your gifts, be part of this. We are going to look after you. And I think that was a very strong message during this entire time. As again, I'm not trying to make an advocacy of anything there. But what I do want to say is that people act for the common good when others are seen to be doing so as well. People are conditional cooperators. One of the things, as I said before, we have this beautiful capacity to be in relationship and to want to be in relationship, but cooperation is fragile. If we are betrayed, I know we should turn the other cheek, and we might do it once, but how many times do we keep doing that? Not very many. So those human relationships need to be maintained all the time. We need to work hard at doing that. In my view, working at that is as important as the physical change we make in the world, because change, once it begins, tends to escalate if it's going in the direction of what is needed and where people are at. So I am going to finish. Just a quick summary: towards a culture of sustainability. Cultivate humility. Control your anger and fear. Attempt to align your practices and spaces with the world you hope for. Within organisations and communities, create a bridging structure that brings together people from across the organisational community who have an interest in sustainability. Generate projects, take action, practical action, and create tales of joy. Thank you.
Although there are obviously limits to our humility, I know the best All Black team to run out on the paddock far better than the All Black coach. But other than that, humility is so critical. I've got the app open. If you aren't on the app, the instructions are on the back of the card. So if you have any questions for Niki, I've got a couple, but I'd rather get them from you. Sent in on the app, and I think I'm pretty sure I've got the page open because I've seen one test question. Why? Oh, hang on. No.
Refresh.
Right, refresh. How can you manage the language of anger without sounding accusatory?
Manage the language of
Anger.
So, does it? Maybe the question means the experience of anger. Maybe if you're in an angry space and you feel fully justified because they are wrong and they have done something to you that they should not have. How do you work with that? Maybe that's the question. Maybe that's the question. I mean, personally, I'm so committed to, I'm not saying I'm good at this, but I'm so committed to this idea of maintaining relationship wherever I can and trying really hard not to destroy it whenever I can. I think it's a kind of count to 10, you know, like if you're in a situation and you are just full of rage, at least go away and don't respond immediately so that you can do so in a way that is calm and grounded. Now, I'm actually not talking about not holding your view. One of the things I sort of skipped over in the humility piece is that being humble is not being confident. Like, you actually need this weird, again, sort of paradoxical combination of confidence and humility. But yelling at somebody, I think, again, when you do that, people do that. Is it something we want to cultivate? Is it the way to create positive change? In my view, no. That's my position on that. Yeah. She said confidently. Yeah.
Next question from Sophie Auckram. How do we foster positive mindsets to take action without losing hope?
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the things, that's why I love the supernova example, because it's right now, people. It's now. If not now, then when? If not us, then who? So to me, I don't really see hope as about what will happen. I see hope as feeling that it is worthwhile working with who we are now in the natural environments we're in and doing our best. And I actually think that's just it's a conversation, it's a practice, it's making sure that you enter spaces which give you that feeling. And when spaces aren't, considering if you should still be in them, it might be not reading all the social media. Do you need to keep up with, say, the latest climate change science to be the person in the world that will make a positive difference? Probably not, unless you're a climate scientist. So, you know, it's choosing your spaces.
Another question. In what ways are social connections more important than carbon sequestration?
So ultimately, I'm not some kind of, you know, it's all thought, you know, the world is an imaginary thing. Not at all. I believe very strongly in the biological, physical planet. Planet actually is indifferent in a sense, you know, to our human deliberations. But what I'm thinking of is what is the most effective. So when I started 20 years ago, it was, oh, we've got to rush. Well, we didn't rush because that's just not what people are like. So I don't want to balance. I don't want to put those two in a competition. But what I'm saying is, for carbon sequestration to happen, for the big policy to happen, and all of that, we need to be working in these positive, constructive communities together towards things. And what keeps people positive and constructive is working on activities that make sense to them and supporting those activities, I think, rather than telling politicians that they're doing it all wrong and they need to change their ways, and we need that. Just so I do not want those two to be in opposition. They're not. And like I said, practical projects, super important. Like actually getting out there doing the tree planting, that's one of the best ways to bring people together. So I'm not at all against physical action in the world. I think that's crucial.
I've got a question myself just while I check on any updates to here, which is, I love what you're saying, Niki. And then I wake up in the morning and I see the news out of the US and the sorts of, you were talking about, we need to model this kind of behaviour. The models that we have, that young people have in the world today, are not necessarily the ones that fit within the kaupapa that you're describing. How do we cope with that? How do how do you insist on humility from people that clearly don't recognise that word at all?
Okay, so I almost interrupted you when you very first started, Glenn, because you make one mistake. You wake up and you look at the news from the USA. No. Okay, so that can be your little commitment from the end. Yeah. I mean, yeah. No. You wake up and you look at all the activities these wonderful people are doing, and the websites I'm sure we'll be introduced to over the 2 days. So yeah, it's again, it comes back to the supernova. Let's imagine that the USA is a supernova and it's going to come and get us. How are we going to live? Well, I'm still going to try and protect the natural world as well as I can, be careful with resources, be good to the people around me, try and generate tales of joy. So it's as simple as that. I have no way to talk about how you influence US politics. I'm just talking about how you can do what you can in the space that you are in.
Yeah. Control what you can. And again, projecting that through modelling that kind of behaviour and waiting for the opportunity when that kind of behaviour is picked up in other parts of the world. And it is being picked up.
Absolutely. It's actually, it's incredible when you look for it, how much is going on. And I've got a graph, again, I'm not trying to do a pitch for my workshop, but I am going to show a graph at my workshop that shows how social change happens in fits and starts. So we feel like nothing's happening for long periods, and all of a sudden, something switches in the environment, and you just kind of need to hold on to that sense that what you're doing is right, even if it looks like you're getting nowhere, because you might be getting somewhere a lot further than you think.
I'd love to thank Niki. Thank you very much, Niki. A really inspiring and just the right note for kicking off this summit, because it's the sorts of thing, the activities, the way, the conditioning of it, the way in which we think about these things, which is going to drive change, and that's what we're here for, and that's what this next 2 days is really all about. So thank you so much for setting such a wonderful scene for us.